whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. Yea, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, Since thou art laid down, no fellow is come up against us. The glory of Lebanon shall come unto thee, the fir tree, the pine tree, and the box together, to beautify the place of my sanctuary. And I will make the place of my feet glorious.
Because the Lord is going to restore everything. You're going to have a total different vibration on the earth, a total different smell. You're not going to be walking down the street and smell shit and piss, you know, and no foul odors or nothing like that, because the lungs of the earth are going to be given back to it, which is all these trees and all of these flowers, and there's going to be a whole total different vibration. You know, you're going to see how things are going to change and how elevated things are going to be. Our senses are going to be heightened, you know? Everything about us is going to be glorified.
For behold, I create new heavens and a new earth, and the former shall not be remembered, nor come into mind. But be ye glad and rejoice forever in that which I create. For behold, I create Jerusalem a rejoicing, and her people a joy. And I will rejoice in Jerusalem, and joy in my people. And the voice of weeping shall be no more heard in her, nor the voice of crying. There shall be no more thence of infinite days, nor an old man that hath not filled his days. The child shall die 100 years old. But the sinner, being 100 years old, shall be accursed. And they shall build houses and inhabit them, and they shall plant vineyards and eat the fruit of them. They shall not build, and another inhabit. They shall not plant, and another eat. Whereas the days of a tree are the days of my people, and my elect shall long enjoy the work of their hands. They shall not labor in vain, nor bring forth for trouble, for they are the seed of the blessed of the Lord, and their offspring with them. And it shall come to pass that before they call, I will answer, and while they are yet speaking, I will hear. The wolf and the lamb shall feed together, and the lion shall eat straw like the bullock. And dust shall be the serpent's meat. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, saith the Lord.
The Lord said that on the Heavenly Father's right hand there are pleasures evermore. And it says that I have not seen, neither ear heard the things which the Lord hath prepared for them that wait for him. You know, there's a whole another world of greatness that awaits us when the kingdom of heaven is established. It's not seen in this society. In this society, we only see carnal things that reason offers in this society. But when the kingdom is established, the Lord is going to open us up to a whole nother world, you know, of pleasure, of knowledge, of wisdom, understanding, you know, just, I mean, can't even be put into words, you know, because our imagination only goes but so far.
Barakatah Yahweh Shah, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shah.
All right. Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers. And peace and blessings, salutations. Hopefully, they out there pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful leg, the believers, the listeners whom have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashim Al-Shah. All right, and what I want to get into today, you know, is dealing with a response. All right, the beloved elder brother Manata Zagba, all right, posted a video, and you had this Jake, you know, this effeminate, all right, weak, all right, matriarch baby. Okay, and his feathers were ruffled, okay, about us, all right, as Israelites having these heathens in captivity in the kingdom, okay, and our people have been so far removed, from a ruling class mentality, so far removed from what a kingdom is, okay, to the true gospel sounds foreign to them, okay? And this guy here, this got to be one of the dumbest scoffers ever, he had to learn he was an Israelite, okay, Wednesday, okay? But one thing about it, what we see is Yahweh Shai. Matter of fact, let's start off with that, and then we'll go into the video, and then we'll go into some things, because one thing about our people, I say they've been so far removed from a ruling class mentality. All right, they've been so westernized. All right, niggas raised by their mamas and aunties. Okay, and when certain concepts of the scriptures come out, Jake is offended. Jake is hurt. Okay, and a lot of our people, they're just not built for it. Okay, now let's go to the book of Matthew, chapter 18. All right, so when you go into the book of Matthew, chapter 18, okay, in verse 6, it says, "But whoso shall offend one of these little ones," matter of fact, I'm starting at 7, this is the point. Matthew 18:7, it says, "Woe unto the world because of offenses," and it's speaking to the world of Israel. Okay, "For it must be need that offenses come." Yeah, so the gospel is offensive to the non-elect. All right, to those who were born in vain just to be judged in this time. Okay, the gospel is offensive to them. Okay, and there's a lot of our people, 2/3 men and women. Okay, even those that know that they're Israelite, because this guy knows that he's an Israelite. Okay, but he's offended. All right, he's offended at rulership. He's offended at a ruling class mentality. Okay, and says, "But woe to them." All right, but woe to that man by whom the offense cometh. All right, which is destruction. Okay, so people that think like this guy that offended at any point of the Bible, whether you're a man, you offended at us having, these heathens in captivity. You're a woman offended at the Israelite man having multiple women. Okay, you're offended at Esau. All right, can't be saved. Okay, whatever point that you might be offended in, well, guess what? Woe to you, destruction to you, because you have this forever slave mentality, man. One thing that Esau has bred, okay, in America, all right, through Western culture and through the matriarch is a forever slave mentality, man. Okay, our people don't mind being a slave under this devil. Okay, forever. Our people will have no problem with it. That's why the Lord has to intervene and cut this time short, man. Okay, so let's get this clown here, man. All right.
Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm back in the building. All praise to the Most High Yahuwah. So y'all know how these? It's too early for this. Y'all know how these Israelite camps, right? These camps, they be saying that we're gonna have slaves in the kingdom, which a lot of them are probably not even gonna make it into the kingdom because of their hearts, because of their heart. Their hearts are not pure. Their hearts are wicked. But they be saying we're gonna have slaves in the kingdom. The Bible doesn't say anything about us having slaves and having people in chains and whipping people in the kingdom, bro. Does that even sound correct at all? Does that even sound righteous at all? Y'all really think it's gonna be wickedness like that? Gruesome acts like that going on in the kingdom? Are y'all absolutely insane? It's too early for this, bro. It's too early for this, man. Why did I just have to go over this scripture in the book of Joel? And it's just one scripture, y'all. Y'all check this out. This is what's going to happen to these people, man. We're not going to have slaves in the kingdom. That's going crazy. This is the book of Joel, chapter 3, verse 8. It says, "And I will sell your sons and your daughters and to the hand of the children of Judah, so-called African Americans. We are of the tribe of Judah, y'all. And this is deep. We're not going to get into that right now because it's 8:30 in the morning, guys. And it says, and they shall sell them. We're going to sell them, y'all, to the Sabines. Now, I don't know who the Sabines is. I'm going to have to do research on that. But we're going to sell these people. We're not going to have no slaves, y'all. And it says, to a people far off, for the Lord hath spoken it. Also in the book of Revelation, it says, I think it's chapter 20, it speaks on how he who leads into captivity will go into captivity. So all these nations that put us into captivity and stuff like that, guess what? A lot of these people, they're going to go into captivity. Either they're going to be destroyed or they are going into captivity, y'all. But anyway, back to these crazy camps, bro. So this is
Okay, so yeah, let's get into it, man. You know, and what you have with this guy, all right, is a nigga, okay, that's offended, okay, at rulership, all right, and this the result of a nigga being raised, you know, by his grandma, mama, and aunties, man. Okay, and you can tell he was one of them niggas, all right, that was you know, you can tell he one of them niggas, okay, they were just sitting there in the front room, okay, while they was talking and gossiping, and he just one of them niggas that was just looking at everybody's mouth, you know, that he one of them type of niggas, man. Okay, and then he heard about he was an Israelite, okay, when he got a a head wrap, okay, and press record. He don't know what's going on, man. Okay, so let's get into some scriptures. Okay, first let's go here to the book of Matthew, because it's not given to everyone to understand the kingdom. See, our people don't know what the kingdom is. They don't understand the mysteries, okay, or the gospel, because the gospel is centered around the rulership. Okay, so when you go here to Matthew 13, all right, when you go to the book of Matthew chapter 13, okay, in verse let's see, let's get straight. Start at 9. All right, Matthew 13:9 says, who have ears to hear, let him hear. And the disciples came and said unto him, why speakest thou unto them, okay, in parables? He answered and said unto them, because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it is not given. Okay, so it's not given to all our people to understand the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. So let's deal with this word mysteries, and then let's deal with kingdom. Okay, so let's deal with this word mysteries. Okay, because like I said, our people have been so far removed, you know, from a ruling class mentality. Okay, to forever slaves. You see, so you got this word in the Greek.
Strong's G 3466, Mustadion.
Mysterion.
Mustadion.
Okay, now when you go into it, okay, it says hidden things, secret, a mystery. Okay, generally mysteries, religious secrets confined only to the initiated. Okay, and not to ordinary mortals. Okay, and the hopeful elect was initiated from the beginning. Okay, to understand these things. Okay, but to ordinary mortals, ordinary Israelites, this is not given. Okay, it goes over their head. They can't grasp this concept of what we're saying. Okay, it says a hidden or secret thing, not obvious to the understanding. All right, Jake mind can't comprehend the rulership when all his people are in power and these heathens are in captivity. And see, we're not just gonna have slaves for the sake of just beating the mess out of them, man. You know, or just being a tyrant. Okay, over the heathens. Okay, now there's gonna be iron a rod for 1,000 years of rigorous captivity. Okay, and that's gonna establish a foundation. All right, for an eternal righteous rulership. And Esau is going to be done away after that 1,000 years. And these heathens, okay, they're going to have a concept of righteousness. They're going to be operating off a standard of righteousness, man. They're not going to be perfect. Okay, they're not going to have the new bodies. Okay, and they're going to be forever subjugated unto us, man. Okay, so when we speak about the kingdom, all right, and everybody think of captivity the way Esau did captivity. Okay, which was extremely wicked. Okay, now there's going to be harsh punishment. Okay, and there's going to be torments. Okay, the scripture says we're going to meditate terror. All right, when it's going to be all in righteousness, man. Okay, and eventually after 1,000 years, man, okay, these heathens, they're going to be able to have structure amongst themselves, but they're always going to be our servants and our subjects, man. We're always going to need, all right, we're always going to have these heathens to our disposal, okay, for our, what it say, our servants and handmaids. Okay, that's going to be forever, man. You see, and it says the hidden purpose or counsel, and see, Jake don't understand the purpose, okay, of Yahweh Bashim Al-Shah. They don't understand the counsel. They're not within that inner circle, man. Okay, and it says of the Most High, the secret counsel which govern the Most High in dealing with the righteous, which are hidden from the ungodly and wicked men, but plain to the godly. See, these things are plain to us, man. Okay, but to a nigga like that and many more, he can't comprehend this, man. You know, when we started speaking about a kingdom. Okay, now let's go from there, because he spoke about matter of fact, let me get this word kingdom, Salaki, and then we'll go into the Sabians. And they said Sabines, you know. Simple. That nigga there was remedial, man. Okay. So you go into the word kingdom in the Greek.
Strong's G 932. Basileia.
Basileia. Okay. And it says royal power, kingship, dominion, or rule. Okay. Now when you jump down, it says a kingdom, the territory subject to the rule of a king. Okay, so how the hell could you have a kingdom and you rule territory, but you don't have any slaves? Who's going to work the fields? Who's going to build the palaces? Okay. Who's going to, because you're going to need infrastructure, continual infrastructure, because we're going to be a growing population. A little one should come 1,000, a small one, a strong nation. Well, where is all the housing going to come from? Okay. The Lord said he's going to increase us, okay, in people and in livestock. Okay. Who's going to tend to all those things, man? You see, the kingdom is a full package blessing, man. You see, a nigga so goddamn simple, okay, that he doesn't understand the concept of a kingdom. He doesn't understand the concept of a rulership. And see, the Lord is not grooming a lot of our people, all right, to be rulers in the world to come. Most Israelite men are not being groomed for that, man. They're not being trained up in that, man. Okay, that's why it's such a foreign concept to them. So now let's deal with this. Okay, let's just deal with this going to the Sabians. All right, now when you go here, and we're going to link it to prophecy. All right, this is Genesis 10:7 says, and the son of Cush, all right, which Cush was of Ham, all right, Seba and Havilah and Sabta and Ramah and Sabtaka, all right, and the sons of Ramah, Sheba, okay, and Dedan. Okay, so these Sabians, you know, when you go into it, it goes into the descendants of Sheba. Okay, now let me see. Which are descendants of Ham. Okay, and then you also had a Sheba. Okay, that was of Qatar. Okay, which was a concubine of Abraham. Okay, so when you go into, all right, prophecy, all right, we can go to the book of Isaiah. Okay, and go to the book of Isaiah. It speaks about these particular nations going into captivity. Okay, and ultimately, this is symbolic for all the heathens going to captivity. You know, just using the examples. Okay, when you go to Isaiah 45 and 14, it says, "Thus saith the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Al Shah, the labor of Egypt and the merchandise of Ethiopia, and the Sabians, okay, men of stature, shall come over unto thee, and they shall be thine." All right, so you know the labor of Egypt, which that goes back to Mizraim. All right, Ethiopia, that goes back to Cush. Okay, and then the Sabians, which were what? Or the descendants of Cush. Okay, so he's talking about Hamites. Okay, but ultimately he's talking about all these heathens, man. You see, and we get precepts to prove that. It says men of stature, because they was known to be tall. All right, even today, the modern day Mizraim, the Sudanese, are known for their height. Okay, shall come over unto thee, and they shall be thine, and they shall come after thee in chains, and they shall come over, and they shall fall down unto thee. They shall make supplication unto thee, saying, surely, all right, the Most High is in thee, and there is none else. There is no power. Okay, which means that there's no other power outside the power of Israel. They're going to see, like, okay, the Lord is with these people. They said they're going to come over in chains, man, which they're going to be captives. Okay, you chain your captives, man. All right, that's when we come out. All right, those chariots, man. Verily, thou art a power that hidest thyself, O power of Israel. Okay, so first off, dealing with the Sabians. All right, with you, these Hamites. Okay, then you have, you know, Shabbat. All right, that will come out of Qatar. All right, which those are heathens as well. Okay, but at the end of the day, all these heathens go into captivity. You see, all these people go into captivity, man. Okay, you know. So, just going back here, all right, and the Sabians, you know, they was known as a merchant people. Now let's go to Joel. You know, let's walk down this history. You know, let's go to the book of Joel, chapter 3. Okay, it's the book of Joel, chapter 3, in verse 1 said, "For behold, in those days and in that time, when I will bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, which is the northern and southern kingdom." All right, and the Lord has raised up his prophets to proclaim the end of our captivity and the beginning of these nations, okay, going to captivity, beginning with Esau, man. Okay, and that's why the Lord is getting ready to close this thing out with a war. "I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat and will plead with them for my people, for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land." Okay, so the Lord is going to close out our captivity with a war. He's going to go to war with these nations, man. That's how he's going to plead for his people, which is to judge. Okay, the Lord's coming to judge on our behalf by taking these nations to war. See, all these nations are about to be prisoners of war. Okay, under Israel, man. Okay, it says, "And they have cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for a harlot, and sold a girl for wine, all right, that they might drink." Okay, because you go into the transatlantic, you know, slave trade. Okay, you will have, you know, Esau, you know, using Israelite boys, turning them for harlot, because you know he's a sicko, all right, and trading, you know, women, all right, for strong drink. Okay, these things are documented. Okay, but ultimately, all we were at one time was a commodity. Okay, and free labor. Okay, for these Edomites. Okay, to become a superpower in the earth. Okay, we're gonna get some history on that. Okay, it says, yeah, And what have you to do with me, Tyre and Zidon, and all the coast of Palestine? All right, which Tyre and Zidon, who are these? These are Canaanite nations, man. All right, which will come from Ham. All right, Palestine, which goes back to Philistine, the land of Philistia. Okay, which goes back to Ham. All right, Philistines come out of Mizraim. Okay, but the Ishmaelites dominate that region. Okay, they began to dominate their region. So the Hamites, okay, and the Ishmaelites, okay, played a major part, okay, in our captivity, aiding Esau. Okay, now you had, Israelite tribes, you did have, rival Israelite kingdoms, okay, that would sell Jake into captivity as well, okay, but the scriptures address, all right, Ham and Ishmael, okay, for their part that they played in. You go into the sub-Saharan slave trade. Like I said, we'll touch on some of this history. It says, if you recompense me swiftly and speedily, will I return your recompense on your own head, because you have taken my silver and my gold and have carried, okay, in your temples my goodly, pleasant things. The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have you sold unto the Grecians, which are Edomites. Okay, now the original Greeks were Japhet. Okay, but Esau supplanted, okay, Japhet, all right, and went under the banner of the Greeks and became a superpower in the earth. Okay, under Alexander. All right, so this is speaking of Edomites, that ye might remove them far from their border. Okay, you see, it was through Esau when Jake was removed far from the borders. Okay, from one hemisphere to another. Okay, that was under the authority of Esau. Okay, with the help of Ham, okay, and Ishmael. You see, it said, behold, I will raise them out of their place, all right, whether you have sold them, and will return your recompense on your own head, which is what? Captivity and slavery. Okay, so let's get into this history, okay, real quick. Touch on a few things, all right, dealing with the history of it. So let's go here. All right. So first, let's deal with, even going back into the time of Genesis, Ishmael was known, for being slave merchant. All right. So just a real quick backstory. Said Joseph was sold by his brothers. All right. Going back to the story of Joseph, our patriarchs, and his brothers. All right. The sons of Jacob. Okay. It said Joseph was sold by his brothers, which this account is in Genesis. All right. You can read it. It said Joseph was sold by his brothers to Ishmaelite merchants, okay, for 20 pieces of silver. All right. So Ishmael wasn't new to this. He was true to this. He said, envious of his father's favoritism and dreams, his brothers initially planned to kill him, but were persuaded by Judah to sell him instead. The Ishmaelites took, all right, Joseph to Egypt. So Ishmael took Joseph to Ham, okay, Mizraim, where he was eventually sold to Potiphar. Okay, so Ishmael, that was their thing of being slave merchant. That was, part of their history. Okay, now when you go from there, let's get this. All right. So let's go here. I want to jump down, because even under the time of the Greeks, Antiochus, would put slaves. Okay, and then Josephus talk about how Antiochus, okay, sold Jake, to slave markets of the Phoenicians, which were, Canaanites. Okay, and you see, so even the actual Greeks, after, post Alexander, Antiochus, when he was spoiled Jake, before the Maccabean revolt, okay, he will sell Jake off to Phoenician slave markets. Okay. It says, so I asked the details of how the European nation enriched themselves during the colonization period by transporting slave labor throughout the earth. Details of the trade triangle during Atlantic slave trade. All right. Now, when you go into it, says the Europeans' enrichment during the colonization of the slave trade period. Okay. It says from the 15th to 19th centuries, European powers built global empires across Africa, the Americas, and Asia. A central pillar of this expansion, both economic and logistical, was the Atlantic slave trade, often described as triangular slave trade. Okay. And it says the triangular trade was a three-stage transatlantic system like Europe, Africa, okay, and the Americas. Okay. It says leg one, Europe to Africa. Europe ships, all right, left ports in Liverpool, Bristol, Nantes, Lisbon, and Amsterdam. They carried manufactured goods, guns and gunpowder, textile, cotton, linen, um, metal shop, like metal tools, pots and weapons, alcohol, especially rum and brandy, that's strong drink, glass beads and trinkets. The goods were traded, all right, to African merchants and rulers, all right, who some of them were Jake. Okay, there was capturing Jake as prisoners of war and selling them off in the trade slave, all right, the slave trade. Okay, well, you had a lot of Hamites, all right, and Ishmael, okay, played a part in it as well. Ishmael built a lot of those boats. Okay. And said these goods were traded to African merchants and rulers in exchange for enslaved Africans, often captured through war and raids, sometimes initiated or supported by European demand. So those guns, all right, and gunpowder were used to capture, okay, Jake, you know, by them Hamites and, rival, Israelite tribes or kingdom, okay, within Africa. It said leg two was from Africa to the Americas, the Middle Passage. This was the most horrific part of the trade. Enslaved Africans were panicked into ships into brutal conditions, typically 300 to 600 people, okay, per ship, shackled together, lying in tiers with a minimal air and sanitation. Journey lasted 6, to 12 weeks, or a month and a half to 3 months. All right. Mortality rates range from 10% to 20% per voyage. So if you take 20%, all right, or if you just take 10%, okay, there will, out of 600 people, there will be 60 people that will die, you know. Then on the high end, the 20% is 120 out of the 600 will die on the way over here, man. Okay, so they were taken to ports in the Caribbean, all right, Jamaica, Barbados, all right, Saint Dominique, Saint Dominique, if I'm saying it right. What is it? Saint Dominique. I think that's damn. I was just finna say it. Cause you got Haiti, and then you got the Dominican Republic. So I believe it's going to the Dominican Republic. Okay. Which that's on the same island, with Haiti, It said Brazil, the American South, Spanish and Portuguese colonies in America. Those who survived were sold at auction to plantation owners. Okay. It says leg 3, the Americans, all right, to Europe. The ship was loaded with goods produced by enslaved labor, especially sugar, molasses, rum, okay, cotton, coffee, tobacco, gold, and other raw materials. Okay, so you had, all right, manufacturing goods come from Europe going into Africa. Then Africa would ship slaves, all right, men, women, and children to the Americas, okay, for labor, all right, to harvest, okay, these raw materials. All right, and these raw materials will be sent back to Europe because Europe had the manufacturing infrastructure to make these raw materials into merchandise. Okay, and that trade kept that triangular trade kept going and going. Okay, for centuries. It said ships. Okay, it said these were shipped to Europe where they were processed, refined, and sold, generating enormous wealth. Okay, how European nations enriched themselves. Britain. Britain became the largest slave trading nation by the 18th century. British merchants transported over 3 million African slaves, which the numbers are skewed, more likely way more. All right. It said profits funded the Industrial Revolution. Major banks, the Barclays, the Lloyds, insurance firm, Lloyds of London, port cities, Liverpool, Bristol flourished as centers of trade. British plantations in the Caribbean, especially Jamaica and Barbados, um, uh, produced vast amounts of sugar. All right, the white gold of the 18th century. It says the colony. Okay, it was Haiti, so Saint Domingo, we call it Saint Domingo, is in Haiti. Which Haiti, I say, in Dominican Republic on the same island. It says became the wealthiest colony in the world by the 1780s, produced nearly 40% of the world's sugar and 60% of its coffee. All right, all with enslaved labor. The French crown and private investors grew rich, fueling the French economy. All right, fueling the French economy and culture. Okay, it says first European nation to engage in Portuguese were the first European nation to engage in slave trading from the 1400s. Brazil was the largest destination for enslaved Africans, nearly 5 million people. Sugar plantations and later gold mining in Brazil built immense, all right, Portuguese wealth. Okay, Spain used enslaved Africans throughout the Caribbean and South America. Also developed system of forced indigenous labor. All right, and it says silver. Okay, from Potosi or Bolivia and Mexico fueled Spain's empire and Europe's economy, and it goes on and on. The Netherlands. Okay, you see. And you go here, the legacy of the slave trade. So the Atlantic slave trade led the economic foundations of modern capitalism and fueled European industrial growth, maritime dominance, and colonial expansion, and also caused immense human suffering and long-lasting inequality, the effects of which persist in global, racial, and economic disparities today. Okay, to this day. All right. So when you go into Joel 3, okay, you can't read that being no simple nigga, all right, not understanding, okay, how this devil enriched himself through our labor. Okay. And we're going to do the same thing. Okay. When you go here, all right, we're going to do the same thing. Let's go back to Joel 3. Okay. Because even the transatlantic slave trade, okay, when you go here, I think that's in Isaiah. Okay, we was removed far from our borders. Isaiah 22:18. It says he will surely violently toss and turn thee like a ball into a large country. Okay, because we went from the land of Israel, fled into Africa. Okay, a lot of us, and what happened? We began to be rounded up when the devil came back into power. Okay, and we began to be shipped off into this large country over here in America. Okay, and said violently, man, talking about the middle passage. Okay, there shalt thou die. All right, because we've been here for generations, man, just dying and coming back in captivity. And there the chariots of glory, all right, shall be the shame, okay, of thy Lord's house, man. You know, because you even had Jakes, you know, seeing the chariots in the cotton field. You know, swing low, sweet chariot, man. You know what they call them, black spirituals, Negro spirituals. Okay, but even the middle passage was talked about. Okay, when you go into prophecy, man. Okay, but going back here, all right, to Joel. Okay, because if you're a kingdom with no slaves, you're not a kingdom. Okay, you see, Jake think the kingdom just gonna be Black Wall Street. Okay, Jake doesn't have a world dominion mindset. You know, so let's go back to Joel. Let's get this in the NLT real quick. All right, this Joel 3. Okay, 6 it says, you have sold the people of Judah and Jerusalem to the Greeks. Okay, you Ishmaelites and Hamites, man. So they could take them far from their homeland, but I will bring them back from all the places to which you sold them, and I will pay you back for everything you have done. So the Lord's gathering us from all our places of captivity. Okay. And he's going to pay them back for everything they have done. And how is he going to do that? He's going to enslave them. Okay. I will sell your sons and daughters, all right, to the people of Judah, and they will sell them to the people of Arabia, a nation far away. I, the Lord, have spoken. Okay. Which you have to understand. All right. Just as these devils, they transported slaves, you know, they transported us from one part of the earth to the other, depending on where, you know, the resources were. These devils, they finna get shipped all across the world, depending on the resources that we need. Okay, and in these places where they're shipped, you don't think they're gonna have taskmasters? Okay, then we have Negro taskmasters over us. Then they put some Jake over us as taskmaster. Okay, let's see. Let's look at. Let's see if we can get that. Okay, let's see if we can find it. So you don't think other heathens they gonna be in captivity too? Because we're not gonna be out there in the middle of the field sweating with them niggas and looking over, micromanaging them niggas. No, we're gonna have systems set up. Okay, we're gonna have systems in place, man. Okay, you're gonna look. We need this much manpower over here. Okay, this is where all the lapis is at. All right, lapis is growing, it's booming. So we need some manpower over here. Okay, you got this region is okay. Let's send some more manpower over there. Okay, you see, it's gonna be systems in place, man. All right, and so just a quick Google where there Negro. All right, task masters. So just real quick. All right, so let's go here. But see, I say a nigga don't understand nothing. Okay. Um, so this quick Google search. All right, it says, were there Negro taskmasters doing slavery? Yes, some enslaved black men served as drivers who directed the labor of other slaves under the supervision of white overseers. Additionally, there were a small number of black slave owners who, in some cases, acted as taskmasters, using their own slaves for labor, much like white slave owners. But the point is, okay, you had Jake, other Israelites that was taskmasters. They were slave drivers. Even in Egypt, you had certain Jakes that were supervisors. Okay, there were supervisors over other Jake. So in the kingdom, you're gonna have heathens that's gonna be slave drivers, man. Okay, so we're gonna be the ones shipping Esau here and there. just like they shipped us to the Americas. Why? Because that's where the raw resources were: the tobacco, the coffee, the sugar. Okay, so they were shipping us wherever the resources were at. Okay, we're gonna do the same thing. You see? So let's go back to what is something else I want to get into? Oh yeah, so dealing with, so you had the transatlantic, then you had the Saharan slave trade, or the sub-Saharan. It said the sub-Saharan, all right, African slave trade involved multiple routes across the Sahara, the Red Sea, and the Indian Ocean that forcibly moved millions of Africans to various regions, primarily the Middle East, North Africa, and later the Americas. This trade was historically driven by demands from empires and kingdoms, and its continuation was impacted by both eternal African dynamics. You had, let's say, you had different tribes. You know, you had Ham, all right, going against Jake. You had Jake going against Jake. Okay, and later by European demand during the Atlantic slave trade. So the sub-Saharan slave trade was already up and booming before the Atlantic. Okay, which what did Howard Shah? He told us about these things. Okay, so let's go here. Okay, it's the book of Luke, chapter 21. Okay, Howard Shah covered, okay, a portion of history when you go to Luke 21 and I think 24. Let me get this. All right, Luke 21 and 24 says, and they shall fall by the edge of the sword. All right, and this speaking with us in 70 AD, we will fall to the Romans. Okay, and shall be led away captive into all nations. Okay, because you had Jake being led captive even in 70 AD. Okay, I believe close to 1 million Israelites were sold into captivity during 70 AD. Okay, but then a lot of Jakes fled, okay, into the interiors of Africa, you know, and settled, okay, in Africa, and then eventually, all right, you had the sub-Saharan slave trade, and eventually the transatlantic slave trade, okay, was what led us captive into all nations. Okay, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down by the Gentiles. You see, okay, these small hats and Hamas, those are the actual Gentiles, heathens. Okay, all right, Ishmael and Amalek. Okay, it says until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled, and we at that time. Okay, our captivity is fulfilled, is being fulfilled. Okay, and the captivity of these heathens is getting ready to begin. And the rulership of Esau is getting ready to end. Okay? So when you go to Jeremiah 30 and 16, it sums it all up. Okay, and there's plenty, you know, precepts to go into slavery, but you know, just gonna touch on a few. This is Jeremiah 30, 16. Therefore, all they devour, these shall be devoured, and all thine adversaries, every one of them shall go into captivity, and they that spoil thee shall be a spoil, and all they that prey upon thee will I give for a prey. Okay, all of them shall go into captivity, man. Okay, when we go to Ezekiel, you see Jake mine, you know, once you get past a PlayStation, okay, and Wingstop, a nigga mind, all right, don't function right, man. Okay, so let's go here. Oh yeah, Ezekiel. Okay, because the Lord promised, you see, and that's why these Jakes, these Yah Israelites, these Yahuwah, Yeshua, all of them off and don't understand what's going on, man. Okay. Now, when you go here, let's just get to the point, and I'm gonna get this in NLT then. All right. This is Ezekiel 36:8. It says, "But the mountains of Israel will produce heavy crops and fruit for my people." Okay, it's the land giving forth its strength, for they will be coming home again soon. Okay, the true Israelites. Okay, see, I care about you and will pay attention to you. Your ground will be plowed and your crops planted. I will greatly increase the population of Israel, and the ruined cities will be rebuilt and filled with people. I will increase not only the people, but also your animals, O mountains, okay, of Israel. I will bring people to live on you once again. I will make you even more prosperous than you were before, okay, during the time of King Solomon. The King Solomon, he didn't have slaves. But see, because our people, they don't associate with the kingdom we're talking about with actual kingdom in the earth, man. Okay? Then Jake talking about, see, they not gonna make it to the kingdom. Jake don't even know what the kingdom is. Okay? So he's gonna make us even more prosperous than you were before. What is he comparing? What is the Most High comparing it to? During the time of King David and King Solomon. All right. Then you will know that I am the Lord. Okay. You see that? So the Lord is going to prove he is by putting slaves in power of the earth, man. The people in captivity, making them rulers forever. That's going to be the Lord proving that he is. Okay. So it talks about the crops, okay, and our livestock. Well, who's going to be doing the actual labor? Okay. Because if you're going to get blessed with the earth, how are you going to enjoy the earth? Okay. If you have to till and work the whole earth. Okay. You get you 2 acres of land and work that, just you. Okay. And you see how much work that is. You see? Nah, man, we got the complete package with the blessing. We're gonna matter of fact, let's get this in Isaiah 61. All right. Isaiah 61. All right. In Isaiah 61:4, and I started 5. It says, "And strangers, all right, these heathens shall stand and feed your flocks." So who's going to care for the livestock? The heathen. And it's going to be forever. "And the sons of the aliens shall be your plowmen and your vine dressers." Okay. So who's going to be doing the laborious work in the kingdom? These heathens, man. We're going to be enjoying the earth, man. Okay. We're going to clock out from labor forever. Okay. Men and women